stress turns off your thinking, it drains your energy, and in doing so, it keeps you stuck. And the part of your brain that conspires to create and sustain that stress is your amygdala, which is not one thing, it's actually two little peanut-shaped bastards down in the basement of the brain. It's the primitive part of your brain that was responsible for keeping your butt safe back when we were living in caves. It would do things like, oh, holy crap, there's a friggin' lion. Or it would also do things like, get out of my friggin' cave. You know, it was a very, very, very good problem solver in its day. These days, not such a great problem solver, right? Especially when it comes to getting tricky stuff done. That's why over the last 100,000 years or so, the amygdala has yielded somewhat to the more evolved frontal lobe. This is where executive function takes place. Rational thought, creative problem solving. But I say yielded somewhat because the amygdala is still in the game, looking to hijack control from your frontal lobe and keep you stuck in the mental and emotional cave. But what does this have to do with our one powerful solution for getting unstuck? Well, the solution is called Get Prioritized with 5 questions and 2 numbers. Meaning you can get prioritized and unstuck by asking 5 simple questions using 2 numbers. And the first of the 5 questions is your knockout punch that takes your idiot amygdala out of the driver's seat. Now, let's set up our stuckness situation again. You've got a gazillion to-dos and they all seem like they are top priorities. Just looking at your to-do list causes stress. You're like on top of your already, being fatigued or hungry, and you've got a million other things going on. You look at all these things and, oh, I guess I need to work. Oh, that's right. There's all these things. And oh, geez, that's that thing over there that I was supposed to do for my daughter yesterday. So we asked the question number 1. Is there a problem here in the now? This is the question before embarking on any problem solving. Because if you feel that there's some real problem here in the now, then your amygdala is going to want to get some of that action. When you feel overwhelmed, threatened, overburdened, treated unfairly, those are all wake-up calls for your amygdala. But when you begin by asking yourself, is there actually a problem here in the now? It forces you to confess that there is not. Because if there were, you'd already be attending to it. Even that thing you just remembered you promised to do for your daughter yesterday is not a problem. If it is, fix it now. If you're not busy fixing it now, then it ain't a problem. And what happens when there is no problem is that your amygdala has nothing to do. Where there is no problem, there is no stress, right? So let's say we are looking again at your to-do list. Is there any problem right here in the now? No, because if there were, you'd be attending to it. You wouldn't be watching CrusherTV. You'd be dealing with that problem. All right. So now that you have the amygdala on a leash with that first question, there's no problem here in the now. You've got a shot at using your frontal lobe to calmly and crisply get prioritized. And you start that process with question number 2. If the gods of doing things only let you do 2 things today, what would they be? That question alone can help you filter out 90% of the to-dos that should not be clouding your mental windshield. Now, I realize it's an obvious question, but A, few people ask this obvious question as a habit, and B, it still might be hard to answer when you have 158 possibilities to choose from, which is fine. That's why we have question number 3, also known as the 3-3-3 method of prioritization. This question helps better distinguish between priorities by bucketing them by urgency. What has to be done in 3 hours? What of all my to-dos has to be done in 3 days? 3 months? You could also do a 1-1-1. What has to be done in 1 hour? What has to be done in 1 day, etc. But 3-3-3 is a pretty good place to start. Again, this seems like an obvious thing, but few bother to apply a filter like this when feeling overwhelmed by competing priorities. And all you have to do to start putting it into action is write across the top of your to-do list 3-3-3. Yet, even this 3-3-3 question may not be clarifying enough, which leads us to question 4. If after questions 2 and 3, I still can't make priority distinctions between my many to-dos, can I admit that they are all, therefore, for practical purposes, equal? This is a very freeing question. Because if you have the courage and the common sense to answer yes, then you're ready for question 5. If I can't make priority distinctions between a set of to-dos, and it's okay if I can't, can I give myself permission to pick one at random and just pull the friggin' trigger and attack it? Answering yes to question 5 and pulling that trigger is a huge productivity hack. It frees you to get moving again, to get unstuck from the predicament of a plurality of priorities. To review very briefly, 1, is there a problem here among my many to-dos? If there's a problem, you'll know what to do. But 99.99 times out of 100, there's no problem. So you shut off your amygdala, and you can now sit back and ask yourself, all right, I got a lot of different to-dos, a lot of different priorities, but if I could only do 2 things today, what would they be? You know what? I still can't decide because there are so many things competing. That's cool. Let's try 3-3-3. What's due in 3 hours? What's due in 3 days? Try to find those. And if that doesn't work, because there still can be a lot of noise going on up here, then let's agree that those are all equal. And start by just giving yourself permission to yank one down, throw a dart with a blindfold on, pull it down, and bang it out. Start banging it out. For the action step here, we will find inspiration in a quote you can actually do something with. And this quote from Dr. Stephen Covey, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. See, we often are driven too much by our calendars, which isn't a problem in and of itself. But when our calendar is not populated with priorities, we find ourselves at the end of a busy day having moved nothing important forward. So pick 1 or 2 priorities right now and put them in your calendar. Or make a quick note right now to do so after the show.